Hey, you want to buy some cilantro? Huh? Huh?
You want to score? You want to score some righteous Mexican herb?
That's got to be our intro for this week. So welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. It is so good to see you all. We are here. We just had the last Sunday of Advent. We're getting ready to celebrate Christmas coming up. And if the guys look at me kind of weird, they're forgetting that we are recording early before any of that is true. And it's kind of throwing us all off. I am John.
That's not, I was going to say, that's not why we're looking at you oddly.
No, see, yeah. Did you go to the optometrist?
Yeah, he's Stanton.
Those are trifocals, right?
That's right. I have to go like this. Look at you guys. So I'm John, and Wade is here with us. Wade, what's going on, brother?
We're recording this on National Signing Day, so that's a holiday in my culture.
Okay.
And I know we're going to talk about culture a little bit today, so just a little bit of my culture is here today.
Very good. Well, I'm glad we could make that accessible for everyone. And joining us, obviously, is our good friend Tom. Tom, what's going on in your world over there?
Yeah, I'm sitting in front of Commonwealth Coffee here at Hemisphere Plaza, and it's a nice, cool, breezy day. So if you hear a lot of noise in the background, it's not these two guys. It's coming from me in the outdoors.
So Tom is live on location.
He's out in nature.
That's nature. Right. That's what we've needed for the podcast. We've needed to be out,
If that's what you call the middle of San Antonio, out in nature, yeah.
Nature boy Tom Tarver.
That's it right there. All right. So when everybody watches this, they will have gone through this season of Advent, at least the 4 Sundays in Advent. And so it's still a little bit on our mind. It's kind of hard to not be thinking, Christmas. So, but I did want to offer this to you. World's most expensive Advent calendar. Can you guess how much the world's most expensive Advent calendar costs?
3.7 million.
3.7 million. That seems like a lot of money. Tom?
I'm going, is it the original from the first Christmas or,
Hey, Tom.
It's Advent, man. It's Advent.
I know.
If you're on The Price is right now, you should say $1.
$1. How about $10 million?
Woo!
Yeah, so you get to come play the game. You get to come play. What is it? Plinko.
3.7 million and $1.
And one. So an anonymous Swiss clan, that's what we're using here, not a family, but an anonymous Swiss clan hired the self-proclaimed Queen of Christmas, Debbie Wingham, to create the calendar for the family's patriarch, who was on the hunt for the ultimate Yuletide gift for his family. Now, there were some parameters for this. The patriarch told Queen of Christmas that they were going to go visit. We have a country to visit each month next year, and I need a way to represent these countries in the Advent calendar. And $10 million, it includes, images of Paris, Dubai, New York, Disneyland. What else here? There's a Chanel purse embellished in diamonds, valued at over $23,000. A gold Arabian lamp with diamond and emerald details. Cost more than $87,000.
It's the story of Jesus.
I'm getting there. It stands almost a meter tall, which is what? That's what, three something?
Yeah, it's a little over a yard.
And weighs a hefty 108 pounds, made from reclaimed ebony and lacquered in black diamond paint to give it a reflective finish. Tell me, gentlemen, what can we learn from the world's most expensive Advent calendar that costs $10 million?
What we've been learning for over 2,000 years. We just don't get it.
But I was thinking the other thing is there are people who don't even blink at $10 million, and I'm going, you need to blink at something else.
What's the old deal? There are 2 kinds of people in the world. People for whom $1,000 is a lot of money, and people for whom $1,000 is not a lot of money. After that, it's all the same. What else, Tom? What do we learn from the world's most expensive Advent calendar?
But I was thinking, I don't know how well Advent is preparation for Jesus, and I'm not seeing much preparation there for Jesus.
How about that?
Unless you kind of think about the Magi who gave similar gifts worth considerable amount of money
To Jesus.
Yeah, to Jesus. Yeah, absolutely.
But it's not like there are any other Christmas related traditions in our family, in our churches, that have nothing to do with Jesus, right? I mean, this is the only thing, the only example I could find, right? Do you have any pet peeves when it comes to Christmas season?
I don't think I have a pet peeve. I have a desire to, I think like all of us, to try to remember what this is all about. I don't really want to fight about coffee cups. I don't want to force people to say Merry Christmas over season's greetings. I don't.
It's a war, Wade. Come on.
There is no war. We're not taking Christmas back. We stole it in the first place. And so
this
for
is
me,
the war on Christmas, isn't that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, for me, I think the biggest thing that's influenced the way that I talk about this every year is Mike Slaughter's book, Christmas is Not Your Birthday. And I don't know if it was initially all that intentional, but we really, in our house, when I was growing up, Christmas was lavish, right? And we acknowledge it and we give gifts, but it's not lavish. And just because that, I think we all have talked about for years and years that this is a consumer holiday in the United States. It's not really as much a religious holiday. I mean, and I'm not speaking for everybody, but I think I'm speaking generally for the culture. It is.
Sure.
And it just doesn't feel like anything that this young baby would eventually teach. Not to mention the fact that this isn't even when his birthday happened, or the whole idea of Christmas is we get accused of knuckling under the culture a lot, right? You shouldn't follow culture. Well, that's what Christmas is.
Exactly.
From its very beginning, it was knuckling under culture, and really for some very good reasons that were safety oriented in a lot of ways. But now it's become, we live in the culture of consumption, and this is the biggest holiday in the culture of consumption. And so, the juxtaposition of what happens with Christmas now and then should not be lost on all of us. Here is the Savior of the world, the promised Messiah, showing up in a backwater town as a little baby, while the Holy Roman Empire, not the Holy Roman, the Roman Empire is got their thumb on the whole place. The reason people are moving around is because of them and taxes, and their sanctioned puppet governor hears rumor of this and eventually wants to kill all the kids in the of a certain age. So it seems appropriate and inappropriate at the same time.
And one of the things, not only does he want to, he does. The only reason Jesus is spared is because his earthly father was warned in a dream, take this boy to Egypt. Otherwise, right from the beginning, he was on a death watch.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I remember reading somewhere, we hear about that story about Herod killing the babies, and maybe sometimes in our minds we don't think about it. You think, oh man, Herod killed all these hundreds of babies and a whole generation of babies, and somebody kind of put it to the test of population statistics, and the number would have only been about maybe a dozen or so of babies, maybe 20, kind of in that range. And you think, oh, only 20 babies were killed. But then you're like, wait a minute, 20, how can you say only 20? And how some of that, that speaks to kind of why we need this time as well. That, like, what did Christ come to do? In part to show us they're not calling me. to show us the need we have for a savior that frees us from these just crazy thoughts, like only 20 something kids were killed, maybe because some guy was jealous or whatever. So Wade tells us we need to change our war on Christmas. We need to say Merry Consumption. That's what we're
That
doing.
sounds, yeah.
That's gonna be my new shirt.
Our
Ho
Lady
ho
of-
ho.
Our Lady of Holy Consumption.
That's it.
There should be.
That's it. The shirt will be coming. Okay, I have this
Sponsored
here.
by Mardell.
Kind of interesting that consumption is not only a way of consuming, but it also means having some illness that is not a good thing to have. So that's kind of an interesting.
Are you preaching?
Thing.
Are you preaching right now, Tom?
Well, no, yeah, right.
Got the itch. Okay.
I was gonna say that's about how long my sermons are now.
So I found this in the Wall Street Journal. To me, it's news that isn't news. More Americans left religion during the pandemic. Survey shows the percentage of Americans with no religious affiliation rose to 29%, while Christians declined to 63%. We've talked about this in some manner or fashion at least once or twice in the last 50-something episodes, but does that surprise anybody at this point?
I think we talked about it last time we got together.
Did
not
we?
specifically, but about this idea that spirituality, religion doesn't have legs without a heart component to it. Didn't we talk about that last time?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
But I guess I'm kind of curious because I was thinking, and I still do, I think in moments of crisis, major crisis, at least the conversation around there's got to be more to life than this, and certainly that question was asked among us as pastors within the life of the church. There has to be more to being the church other than showing up on Sunday morning and hoping people give. I mean, honestly, that this was an accounting time.
Right. So a significant minority of the population is saying their faith has been strengthened as a result of the coronavirus outbreak. But that group, the people say their faith has been strengthened, is concentrated among those who were already highly religious. And so this idea that those who were kind of on the periphery, maybe somewhat connected, maybe it was something they did, but it wasn't very important. These are a lot of the people who are finding themselves content with sort of cutting themselves off from Christian ties, right? And then, so yeah, you're right, Wade. So then part of that was, us figuring out now, what does ministry look like now? That's true. When, we could expect. I saw a colleague yesterday post, and he's retiring. At the beginning of his 30-something year ministry, he could count on, X number of people showing up to a Bible study, in the 30s every week or something like that for his class. And now, it's like, if he can, you don't know who's going to show up from week to week. And I had shared a few weeks ago, I tweeted out, man, I really suck at getting church people to Bible study, right? And it's the same sentiment, because whatever we used to think we could count on before, that's all gone. And we need to figure out what that ministry looks like now that it's different. So, but the idea that these numbers keep going down, to me, that's not news. That's what we keep hearing. That's what we've heard for decades now. But maybe now it's time for us to finally pay attention to what those numbers might mean.
So, in all of this, I've always believed, one, that first of all, you can't exactly poll God, or he won't show up in necessarily the right question or the questions people are asking, but I believe God is active. One of the reasons I believe God is active, because somehow in the world I found him, or he revealed himself to me, and it wasn't in a sermon. It wasn't because I went to church. In fact, I'm thankful that I went to church, but it was just simply this moment of revelation, and it was purely God. It wasn't me looking for God. It wasn't because I was doing all the right things. It was the Spirit of God active in this world, activated my first of all my heart, and eventually my mind. And I think that the work of God enters either through the intellect or through the emotions, but it is when both of those come together that maturity begins to develop.
Sure.
So that's why I'm going. One is the church is dying. You can't kill what God is doing in the world, because God is God and He is alive, and we have to. This whole Christmas story is really about this amazing event that God, who couldn't be seen, suddenly appears in the form of a child, a small baby, who grows into maturity, and at the age of around 30 or 33 is executed. And he specifically executed, we can't miss why he was executed. It wasn't because he was doing nefarious things. He was specifically executed because he said that he was the Son of God, and that was blasphemy.
Right. And to your point, right, those of us who understand, God's church doesn't go away, cannot be silenced. God's church will always be. What we see failing is maybe our American, because this seems like particularly an American thing. The way it's shaped today is our American sense of church that is failing, and that might not be a bad thing.
Well, I think that what we're seeing isn't exactly the same thing, but it's very akin to what has happened in Europe with Christianity.
Sure.
And and I didn't make this up. I'm borrowing this from other people, but our national religion in my lifetime has never been Christianity. It's been patriotism. It's been America. That's our religion.
Yeah.
And that's all wrapped up in ideas about freedom and power and economics. And our religion is, in this country, I believe, is as much economically based as it is anything else on the whole. And that is what I see as, you got to keep the main thing, and economics is not the main thing. And politics is not the main thing. And I have felt since I got into ministry and before that, we read in Genesis that we were created in God's image, and what I see in large part in the world is a God that's created in our image, a Jesus that's created in my image that I like, and it's almost always in this part of the world wrapped up in the things that we have and the things that we can have and the things that we desire and the freedoms that are our birthright, and the places where we see the church really thriving are places where they don't have a lot of that stuff.
Baggage.
Yeah.
You guys read American Jesus? You remember that book?
Oh, I don't think so. It sounds like a good book, though.
Oh man, yeah, it's a fascinating look at sort of the historical way that we kind of get this, or the ways Jesus gets portrayed in every culture, because every culture portrays Jesus according to their culture. And when you look at exactly what you're saying, Wade, when we look at how Jesus is portrayed in American culture, man, it's not the Jesus of Scripture, man. It's not him. It's this weird. I would recommend that book. It's a great book. It's been out for quite a while. But yeah, we have, this is a great time for us, right? Because what it does remind us, okay, if the church, our sense of church is failing, I think it's great. This is, like you said, Tom, a reckoning. Now this does something. It reminds us that there is still a mission of God, and it makes us rethink what is the main thing, like you said, Wade, and what perfect time to do that as we start thinking about the reality of the incarnation coming to the world. So speaking of people leaving the church, like on their own, let's talk a little bit about like kicking people out of the church. Did you guys ever take home economics?
I did.
I didn't, but I would have. I mean, I like those kinds of things.
Yeah, I took shop. I don't think I had home economics, but I can still tell the difference, guys, between cilantro and marijuana.
Does that say more about economics or something else?
I don't know. Maybe about where I'm from. I didn't know about cilantro for a long time. Growing up, I don't know that I ever paid attention. Now, I do get confused. If you send me to HEB and tell me to get cilantro, there's a 50-50 chance I'll come back with parsley.
Yeah.
And that's because they put them like right close to each other.
All you got to do is smell them, dude.
Well, okay, fine. But then they're right so close to you. Am I smelling the parsley or am I smelling the cilantro that's behind it? And then once you start putting your nose on things, you can't put it back.
You won't be sure about the parsley, but if you smell the cilantro, you will know.
You're right. But still, we can all hopefully tell the difference between cilantro and marijuana.
I hope so.
But some of us can't. Let's realize that. So I'm going to offer this story to you if you haven't heard it already. Oklahoma woman kicked out of church as members mistake cilantro for, guess what, guys?
Marijuana.
This is the members of a famous church in the U.S. I don't know what that means.
It's a United Methodist church, just so you know.
It is a United Methodist church, which, doesn't make it worse. But as United Methodist clergy, were like, oh, man, couldn't it at least been a Baptist church or something?
Yeah.
Or a Free Methodist church, maybe?
Yeah.
They kicked out a woman after they mistook cilantro for marijuana. They confronted the woman for allegedly bringing drugs to the congregation. However,
it wasn't a part of potluck or something.
So she has some not pozole. What did she have? She had menudo, right? And as I understand it, I haven't seen the video, but as I understand it, like she had like other ingredients with her.
Yeah.
That you would have for menudo. The menudo was already there, and now she's bringing in the onions. She's bringing in everything else.
She was not unknown to these people. It wasn't like she walked in off the street with a bag of cilantro.
Hey,
came in with a baggie.
Hey, you want to buy some cilantro? Huh?
Score? You want to score some righteous Mexican herb?
That's got to be our intro for this week. So I don't know. These are probably ushers or greeters who are there. This is Redemption. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but because they've had some issues afterwards, which I guess in the world of social media, that's just going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So that there are members who are confronting this young woman for bringing weed to the congregation, even though she repeatedly said it was cilantro for her menudo. That's bad, right? What makes it worse for me is that apparently the pastor this is like during or maybe at the end, I don't know, of a worship service, and the pastor is preaching, doing what preachers do, and he gets called out and he stops his sermon and he comes to join in the confrontation, and he's not any more gracious about this at all. So much so that they don't allow her to come into the church. They make her leave. Now, since then, as I understand it, the church has put out a statement that it was a misunderstanding. It was a mistake. They apologized. I don't think this is the one. Oh, yes. Later, the church authorities issued a statement and watch this. Now, this is just the way this News 18 is wording it, but church authorities issued a statement and allowed Ashley to attend prayers for next week because they are that gracious. What do we learn about that, gentlemen?
Well, I mean, I think I think the easiest thing to do would be to pile on, and I'm certainly capable, willing, and happy to do that because I think there's a sense in which it's deserved. But I also know that I've never seen anything in a church that I served that was quite that drastic. But sometimes, and you guys have had this experience too, you get pulled into situations that are out of hand when you walk in the door, or you come out of the pulpit or whatever, and your first reaction could be really wrong. So I don't think I would have handled that way in this case. And you know, I the thing that when I saw the video the first time, it's been several weeks. Uh, the thing I thought about is, what if she had shown up with a case of beer?
Hmm.
I don't. I think it might have been different. So,
How so?
well, I mean, I don't think we want people drinking beer in the sanctuary, but I think probably somebody would have said something like, "You can't take that in the sanctuary, but you can leave it out here and pick it up when you're on your way out." Where I think some of it is, marijuana is illegal in lots of places still, and so there's that. But when somebody comes into the church, and I don't even know if it's different if you know them or not, but unless they're somebody, they're causing imminent harm.
Right.
I've had people come in the middle of service when I was in a small country church. We'd never seen them before. They were passing through town. They wanted some help, and they wanted me to help them during this. Like, they wanted me to stop the service and help them. And we didn't get mad at them. We said, "Look, that's not the way we operate. We'll talk to you after church. If you guys want to sit down and worship with us, that's great. If you want to wait outside, you're welcome to do that."
Right.
And we did that. And but for me, and I don't know how you guys feel, but if somebody indeed showed up with a bag of weed and wanted to come into the worship service, I think I would say, "Why don't you leave it outside, but come into the worship service, and we'll make sure that it's still there when you go." And
It will be accompanied by 2 officers, but
maybe, I don't know.
Maybe not.
yeah, well, I'm going. First of all, that seems so unrealistic, that scenario. And
Right.
yeah.
Look what I got, guys.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you my bag of weed. Yeah, I mean, my best friend from high school was smoking, marijuana in the back of my car, and that's the closest I've come to anybody, showing me weed, and and it was kind of like I'm driving it, and there is that distinctive odor of a distinctive fragrance of marijuana, and it's kind of like, Bailey, what are you doing? Put that out.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
that's a funny part of this story. The odor is distinctive, whether it's burning or not. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's not hard.
Cilantro is definitely, yeah. I was gonna say it's nowhere near the aroma, but they may have been thinking, well, yeah, it's in there, but you're covering it with something else. I don't know.
In all this, what gets lost is what happened to the menudo. I mean, we're not going to waste that, are we? I mean,
Well, and there's this undercurrent of, and I think we touched on this last time we got together. There's this undercurrent of, you remember last week where I think John said these people have never been to Mexico? These people, I mean, cilantro and menudo are not just foods and spices. It's part of and you correct me if I'm wrong, John, but it's part of a culture. And I find that, and that's probably the most different culture that I'm in contact with the most. So it's understandable, but I find that when I started realizing sort of the cultural differences or melting pots that we had specifically in Texas as a young person, and I started to begin to learn some Spanish, it became very evident to me that in the cultures that are all over Texas for sure, and they're everywhere in the United States at this point, but particularly south of the border, that the language isn't just a language, it's a culture. The food isn't just food, it's culture. That artwork that we talked about last time we were together, doesn't mean anything other than expressing culture in a particular way. And so I think as much as anything, what happened here isn't about cilantro or marijuana or what's illegal and what's not legal. I think it was about just not understanding each other's culture in some on some level.
I can affirm that. I grew up in Galveston, and I'm half and half, like literally straight down the line. Uh, um, and on my dad's side, we're Hispanic, and we have all of that, and I grew up with that, and that's fine. Then we moved to the Valley after we got married, and moving to the Valley was a culture shock for me.
Right. Yeah.
Because it is it's different. It's totally different level. I can remember being in the Valley, and I was still young. I still have beady eyes, and I don't know what kind of hairstyle I had then. I can remember being in a big church, probably like this one. And I've told the story before that I'm sitting here and Gloria's sitting next to me, and then there's an older woman sitting kind of close to me, and we came in later and sat down. In between the woman and me is her purse, and I can see her. I still see it. She kind of looked over and very discreetly just kind of went over like this and grabbed her purse and brought it to the other side. And that's not just culture. That's having some assumptions about somebody who looks a certain way too. And I also want to affirm, Wade said, I don't want to pile on this church, but I think we all make mistakes, don't we?
Mhm.
Right? Maybe we've never made something that drastic, but who's to say, Tom, you got out just in
I've never
time.
made that big of a mistake on video. I know.
Right, on video. That's right. Right. So yeah, we want to take that with grace and understand that things happen, and could things have been done better? Obviously. And so let's learn from that. But there's a line in this particular telling of the story that just got me. Again, we're talking about the power of the incarnation and what that does for humanity, what it means for humanity. We're talking about how the church, our sense of church, is failing, and what is most important. Here's the line that got me. Ashley told them that she was a regular attendee of the church. And so I read that and I thought, like, I don't know how big this church is, but like, they don't know each other, right? They don't know that they belong to the same church. There's no sense of no, I'm here for the potluck. I signed up to bring this, right? There's no sense of connection there. I mean, if so, I think things would have been different. So I just think maybe in our last several minutes together, guys, can we, when it comes to the Christian community, like Jesus, that's the main thing, right? But what kind of sense of community is supposed to pour out of that, and what are we supposed to be able to depend and expect of each other, depend on and expect of each other as fellow believers and followers of Jesus?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to exactly answer your question, John, but I think it would be interesting, although probably not necessary for me. It would just be interesting to know how they handled that in the aftermath of all of the, they got a bunch of social media backlash. But how did they handle those relationships after the fact? Because I don't think I would have handled that the same way. I want to think I wouldn't have. But when you're in it, being in the middle of worship and having a disturbance outside, and then going outside to try to quell that, I don't know that I don't know that I would be my best version of myself. I hope I would, but I don't know that I would. And so I hope that whatever I misstepped on, that we could fix. And to me, that sort of answer is my answer to your question. I think there's an opportunity for both parties to experience and present grace to one another. And I don't know how you do it, but to me, that would be a far more interesting story than this one.
What happens afterwards, right? Now that we understood each other, we've gone through the pain of it and the embarrassment of it. We're dealing with the consequences of it, even.
And we're broken. We people in the church, we're broken people. We
Right.
mess up, and to me, the hallmark isn't about not messing up.
Exactly.
It's about how do we keep community together and stay in community, even if we come across these valid or invalid disagreements.
But you did answer my question, because part of what you're saying is, what can I expect of you all? If we're a part of the same local congregation, is that you're going to give me grace when I need it,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be able to do that for you as well. As difficult as it might be, as much as we might mess it up along the way, but you can expect grace from me. What say you, Tom?
I was thinking, first of all, that in listening to or reading that, one of the things that is happening, one of the things that's happening there is basically in reading her part of the conversation or experience was basically, I don't do that. I'm not that kind of person. And this, oh no, you've labeled me in a way that's not right. And the other side of that, I think, that's at work is, we're not that kind of church where you can bring in marijuana.
Wow.
So we don't want to be mistaken for that. And she's saying, you've mistaken me for that. But
That's good.
But
Wow.
the other thing that comes into play in all of this is, and I've only read a little bit of it, but I brought with me, when I'm in San Antonio, a lot of times I bring a book and I do some walk and pray, and I read, and the title of the book is Life is Messy. I mean, you can have the right job, you can have the right spouse, you can have the right car, the right house, and still life is going to be messy. And I mean, you just can't avoid it in this world. And one of the things I know in my relationship with Ellen, life gets messy and we misunderstand one another. And sometimes there are some pretty loud, conversations, usually not in the house, because as soon as that starts, it's like, we've got other people in the house. Let's take a walk. And but anyway, anytime that kind of tension happens, it's possible one of two things will happen. We will be so mad at one another that we will pull apart, or we will go through that messiness and at the other end of that be closer and more mature and have a healthier relationship. And I think this is one of those moments within the life of that particular church and that particular woman where on the other side of it, I'm going to start drifting away, or I'm going to find that I'm even more intensely connected with this community of faith. And that's all the things we've talked about, really. The pandemic, people leaving the church, all of that is about this messy middle where I'm either going to come out on the side of healthier, more mature, or I'm going to kind of back off and be safe. And protect it. I'll protect myself and let it and not be vulnerable to you. So those are the things that are kind of going through my mind. And again, it's kind of getting busy right here on this stretch of the plaza.
Tom, it's okay. We forgive you. but I forgot what I was going to say. But both of what you said is related. That we're willing to figure this out together, right? We're willing to. This happens, and we're willing to say, okay, now what? Because we're supposed to be different. Right. And that's my point as well. Like, the Christian community is supposed to be a different community from any other community there is on earth. One that is based on the grace of God, the love of God. And that's supposed to mean something for how we actually live out this faith together. And too often we see, somebody gets mad and they just leave. There's no chance to reconcile, or we speak behind each other's backs, or we have things to say, or whatever. And or today, we get online and we say whatever we're going to say, and that's not, I don't know, I think we have a higher calling than that. If you're a pastor there, if this happens to you, do you preach about something like this, since it's so widely known now? Does that become something that you use?
I think you have to.
Yeah. How do you approach that, how do you approach that to the rest of your congregation?
My hope would be, if something like that happened to me, and having not walking in this person's shoes, I don't know I don't know what the ramp up to that was, and I don't know what the fallout was, but other than what we know publicly. I would hope that if not right away, later in the day on Sunday, I would really have a come to Jesus meeting with myself and say, we could have handled that better, and we still can. So let's try to figure that out. And then, I think some of the most powerful preaching that gets done is when we, I don't think we need to do this every single time we preach, but when we, when the person preaching can sit up there and go, you know, I've done some, I've done some things that I'm not proud of, and here's how we overcame those things. To be able to do that in almost real time in your own congregation and say, we're not perfect, and here we had this thing happen, and we ended up all over the country for something that it's probably overblown to some degree.
Sure.
It obviously wasn't handled immediately, because I don't think that video would have shown up on social media if everybody walked away from that feeling like they had been heard. And so, and that might be something that the pastor thought he could handle on Monday or whatever. But I think if my church ended up on social media like that, I think I would have to get up pretty doggone quick the next Sunday and say, here's what happened. Here's what wasn't handled well, and we need to do better at that, and then tell the story, tell the gospel. It's a great parable, I think, that the church could live and tell.
You can almost hear Jesus telling that parable. A woman walks into church with
a bag of weed.
Go ahead, Tom. That's right. Go ahead, Tom. You're about to say something.
No, I was just thinking, and how do you tie that specifically into this season? That incident. How do you create a response that is also, both timely to what actually happened and timely to the gospel message in the Advent season? So, and I'm thinking, that takes a little bit more of a deeper approach, or a deeper, more time in thought. But the reality is, we know that both that incident and the Advent / Christmas season can be tied in, because they are tied in.
Yeah. You said a bit, life is messy, and so is the incarnation, right? I mean, giving up heaven to come here to this.
Well, and place. I mean, that whole narrative right there could be this, a metaphorical story of no room at the end.
There you go.
So I think it's easy to bring it into this season. And
do you think that's why Mary and Joseph couldn't stay at the end? They're like, nah, you brought you brought cilantro. We can't have that stuff in here, man.
Bring your weed, but so we draw the line at cilantro.
We draw the line at cilantro. We're not having that. All right. So I think that's helpful, because, one of the things you talked to whoever talked before about, sort of our national religion, even when we come around Christmas, Christmas is about family. No, it's not. But it does give us a chance, what matters in our families. And if we consider the church to be a family of God, then this is a perfect time for us to consider and reflect on what we think are our family's ideals, and what we are going to hold each other accountable to as a family of God and for our witness. So good job, guys. You did good. I appreciate that. That's good. Like I said, I didn't want to pile on either. I didn't want to say, oh, look at this church. No, my good, because we all make mistakes. We're just all fortunate enough that cameras weren't going, and maybe it wasn't as big or as silly, maybe even as this. But there is something we can learn from and about all this. So I think that's helpful. So I appreciate that. Good job, guys. And by the time you all see us again, we will be on the other side of Christmas Day. We'll be in the Christmas season, and we can't wait to celebrate that. So thanks for tuning in. Tom, I appreciate you tuning in from San Antonio and bringing your wisdom to us. Wade.
Yeah.
How you
Yeah.
like that? Wade, not Wad.
Hey, it took me
Not one.
about 3/4 of our time together to finally decide that your glasses weren't a filter.
How's that? Yeah, is that helpful? Let me see.
Yeah.
So,
No, it was. I finally. I was like, I wasn't paying attention the whole time, but I finally saw the thing going back here, and I'm like, okay. That's what
those
I
are real
thought.
glasses. Well, thank you for being so observant, Wade. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you're here. And Brad is out; he couldn't make it, but we wish him all the best as well. You too. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of an almost perfect podcast community. Let's celebrate the joy of Christ by celebrating the joy brought to our hearts. So until we can be together again, God be with you.